Welcome to the, okay, I gotta do this every time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is number 6. Yes. Welcome to the 6th.
Who keeps track?
I do.
Oh, okay. Not very well.
Because when I send them information, I now I'll put a 6 on the end.
Oh, this is the way you're organizing things.
Yeah.
Wow, you're sorting people. I don't know if that's legal.
Welcome to the 6th Wednesday of the 2024 summer middle school science professional development from Purdue University K-12 science K-12 outreach, blah, 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 blah.
Sarah, why is your camera shut off? People need to see what you look like.
Oh, no.
You're part of the team.
Nah, I'm just.
So today we are going to dive into college and career readiness. We have been asked over the last couple of years, teachers, what resources are available, what things should we be doing, how should we do it, and stuff like that. And we have some people that are going to come and talk to us from different organizations at Purdue that work in these areas, and they're going to give us some guidance and some thoughts and some ideas. And then we have 3 people. They're going to come for about 15 minutes apiece. And then after they're done, then we're going to share some resources that we have that will allow you to dive into your classroom with some things you can do with kids around college and career readiness. For this first little bit before it's 1:06 before 1:15, we wanted to ask a couple questions. And so we're going to do this in the chat. What are some things that you currently do right now with college and career readiness in your classroom? So if you would type that in the chat, then we can have a little bit of discussion around what's currently being done.
Oh, I saw somebody put something already. It was just you repeating the question.
Research STEM career projects.
Put an S on that. There's not an S on that.
Project.
Yeah.
I would assume there's more than one project.
I don't know. It might just be like one big research project.
Okay.
Don't take assumptions.
It's
like taking liberties. Why is yours black on the screen thing and mine's all bright and white?
Because I have mine set to dark mode.
Mode?
Yeah, I do like the dark mode.
Well, everything else I have dark.
I think you get.
It is one project for 8th graders. See, your assumption was incorrect. Bill.
Research STEM career project. Anybody else? Anything else that people do?
Oh, Chris, honestly, nothing reliable. Occasionally have a parent volunteer talk about their career and so exposure to people working in different fields via Zoom. Okay, that's really popular. Those things that we're hearing now are very I'm like looking at you people on the screens and I don't know where to look.
Just look straight
this
ahead.
is not something good for something like ADD. Speaking for a friend. Oh, it moved. No, it didn't. That's very popular. We hear that from a lot. Either they'll have someone come in, oftentimes a parent come in or something like that, or just some of the organizations or big groups will have people that you can sign up to get a professional in. We were talking to someone last 2 weeks ago about that. I don't remember who it was, but I remember them telling us.
I've had a couple schools that have contacted us, and I afterwards I asked back. They had almost like it sounds really bad the way I say it, but it's like speed dating, and they'll have in the auditorium they'll have different tables with someone sitting at a table, and it's their career, and then the kids can walk up and ask questions. And then so they can go to different careers and then just go up and ask a couple questions. Yeah. And the kids had like a sheet already.
Tore one of the texts.
Okay.
Okay. And again, like I said, these are, and the Tori one and the tech one, that's interesting. Sam's Chris, nothing special from a middle school class. Used to have a Skype a scientist several times. Yeah, we've interviewed some people for our podcast from the Skype a scientist thing. That's a pretty big network, it seems like.
Yes.
I mean, we found out some of our faculty were signed up in, and we didn't know that. So yeah, that's a pretty big network, and that seems like a decent program. So that's definitely what we're looking into. We're gonna have some other things that we'll show you, some resources that we put together by teacher request, that after the people come talk to you.
Mhm.
And who are the ones, when I say talk to you, who are these people that are coming? You don't have to say their names, just what are they?
So we have one person from basically the Center for Career Exploration. So they look at how kids that are at Purdue look at careers outside. So kind of what you'd be doing with the kids in the classroom when they go, oh, I'm interested in X. What careers are available for X? And then we have one of our recruiters for the College of Science. So he's out actually talking to people about, what kids have to have in order to be able to go to college. What are requirements? What are some things that they would want to make sure that they're checking the boxes on? And then we have a counselor from actually what's the new Department of Chemistry called? Tarpo. And she's a senior counselor advisor, they call them advisors here. And she's going to talk about things that kids have had trouble with and some things that they could have done ahead of time to help themselves.
Okay. Well, that'd be helpful to get that extra information from people. But then we will go through the resource that we put together that has hundreds of, well, not hundreds yet, but
Over 100.
has tens and tens of, it is over 100 from STEM professionals. We're going to show you that, what we're doing with that. And that's the people we talked to about that so far have been real excited about it. So we're hoping you're able to be also. This is your person.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew they jumped
I
in.
saw that. One other question I have before we transition. When kids are in your classroom and they get all excited about a topic. So when people do a lot of these career things that you guys mentioned, they have them preset. But I do think that there's a lot of value in, if all of a sudden all your kids get all excited about the solar eclipse, right? And so then what are some careers around solar eclipse? And I think as teachers, and I'm speaking as a middle school science teacher, I think teachers, we just don't have enough knowledge to be able to quickly get back to the kids like, okay, here are some things available.
Mhm.
And so I think that's something that we're hoping to help give you a little bit of that as we go through. So I guess my question was, do you, the teachers, do you try to hit it when kids are excited about something, or are most things pre-planned?
Wander down rabbit holes all the
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I run it.
time.
Well, and I mean, I think I would say, I hate to say all teachers, but I think a lot of teachers do that. Mostly,
Pre-planned.
Yeah.
Subject there.
okay. Okay, thank you for that knowledge. Okay,
Who do you have first? Carolyn?
so we got Carolyn Ursuline, who's going to be our first one. Carolyn, if you can turn on you know what, you're probably in here and you're not a panelist. Maybe you came in. Let me see if I can. Bam, I made you a panelist.
I'm trying, Bill. Ooh, did I do it right?
You did it right.
I did come in as a participant and not a panelist. I was like, I don't know how I got in here, but
I don't either. That maybe the link I sent you was I thought it was the panelist, but maybe
well, I think you did, but I think because I'm a Purdue staff member, it took me through like my Purdue login. Like
Oh.
it brought up my career account. Hi. Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Carolyn. If you would first introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about what you do.
Sure. I sure can.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon for most everybody, although Bill told me that there's folks joining from all over the globe. So we'll see. Maybe they're not all over the globe and they're just here in Eastern time zone. My name is Carolyn Ursuline. So I currently serve as the Director for Career Development here at Purdue. I actually work in the Center for Career Opportunities, which is a big name, but basically it is the comprehensive career center on our campus. So our office serves all students, all degree levels, everything from that exploration phase to internships, gaining experience, and then launching, right? Then that career readiness to move into whatever that next step might be. So it could be employment, could be graduate or professional school, could be volunteer service, could be military service. So I have the privilege of being a colleague of Bill's, but also a neighbor, because we live in the same neighborhood. So I'm really excited to be here today. I also have middle school twin boys who are going into 8th grade this fall. So this was kind of a fun one to do because I realized the audience are middle school teachers. So maybe I should apologize for.
I think they will all take your apology.
Okay. Hopefully they will accept it. Middle school boy twins. There you go. How's that for you?
There you go. Wow.
No need, we know, says Kathleen.
Yeah. So
You live it.
I think one thing that will help us as you've been doing your job,
Yep.
what are some, I'll say some common traits that like people come and they have issues or they have things that you could maybe even see teachers in middle school touching on so that maybe the kids don't have these issues when they get later in life. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that makes sense. So if I go off on a tangent and I wasn't tracking your question,
Okay.
rein me in. So I do think as we encounter folks, in my office, I actually do a lot of recruitment visits. So when we have families and students visiting our campus to, one, try to decide if Purdue's for them, but many of them are exploring, right, if college is for them, period. But I think some of the things we hear a lot are in that sort of career readiness space. And so I know that many of you have heard that phrase. I know that you're charged with that at, in the K through 12 system as well. But I think some of the things are what we would say that employers are looking for as well, is that readiness from a competencies, like things like, in fact, I have something I can share if you'd like in a minute. But it's basically looking at what are the skills and competencies that students might, and this is, I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's things like teamwork and communication and problem solving. And that sounds, interesting to me because it's still at that phase when they're exiting their college experience, in our case, their college experience, that we still have employers that are saying, hey, their perception of their communication skills is actually not my perception of their communication skills. And so it's thinking about how can you help students at that, I'm going to say middle school level, reflect on what are they engaging with? What are they curious about? What problems do they want to solve? And I think that's really key, is to help them be curious, and help them not feel like the decision that they're making right now is dictating their life for the rest of their life, right? Like I used to ask our students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I've actually changed that question in the last several years to, what are you curious about? Or what do you want to do first? what are you motivated by right now that you want to jump into and really explore? So I think it's embracing that feeling of exploration is really important. And I feel like there's a lot of things telling our students that they have to know, that they have to be decided. And that's actually, I think, really the furthest from the truth. If students are resilient and they are working through that process of being curious, they're so much better off because they're not, blinders on. They're actually, blinders off. And I think that's really important. But I don't know if that's the direction you were thinking about, Bill, or if there's questions about that.
Well, I mean, so I think that all those skills you talked about, and the one that you mentioned kept going back to was communication.
Yep.
And I'm thinking back, Steve and Sarah, when we were doing our inquiry workshops, and we always talked about the last two parts was being able to communicate your findings and justify, but doing it in a way that is productive. I don't want to say because a lot of times they just don't know how to communicate out what they found. And so we then a lot of times we tell teachers, have the kids go back and actually use facts from their lab or from what they did, and then use those to justify why they came up with their conclusions. And so trying to give them some train of thoughts onto how to do that. And I can also, at Purdue University and the College of Engineering, they're constantly trying to get people to understand how to communicate better, and let alone still in the College of Science now doing that. And they have courses on how to communicate. But if we can work on this college and career readiness stuff back in middle school on how to communicate better and more effectively. Yeah. But I'm talking to the teachers that one of the biggest problems is it's time.
Right.
Because in order for them to communicate all that out, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. And I would say too, Bill, like in our perspective, exactly what you said, it's helping those students when they get to, if they're in a 4-year institution, even a 2-year institution, even if they're in a trade, right, that their communication skills, they have to be able to tell we say, tell their story, right, of what did they learn? What did they fail at? What would they do different next time? Because they're going to be asked in interviews, regardless of what level that position is tell me about a time when, or how have you demonstrated? And then they're going to have to, come up with examples and stories. And so the better that they get at doing that, even if it's just short snippets, it doesn't have to be a novel, right? It doesn't have to be a 20-minute lecture. But I think that's something that we find that even as they're more traditional age students, 18 to 22-year-olds are a lot of the students that we work with at Purdue. Not to say that we don't work with adult learners as well and things like that, but they're having to do that. And we do a lot of work with, that you're not just, this isn't a one and done. Like you're going to do this in your resume. You're going to do this in a cover letter. You're going to do this in your portfolio. You're going to do this in your lesson planning. You're going to do this when you're, meeting someone at an event, whether it's a networking event or just a social event. You're always looking for those connections, right? And helping them connect, even if it's just learning how to ask questions, right? And with the, and one of the things that we've talked about lately is even with like the artificial intelligence right now, the chat GPTs of the world, is you have to be able to ask the prompts to get the information that you want. And so I do think that's really important. And communication, in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this, communication has always been in the top 10 of what employers look for, regardless of whether it's 3, 7, 1. I mean, year to year it changes. In fact, the most recent one I'm kind of looking out of the corner of my eye with our National Association for Colleges and Employers, which is one of our kind of big professional associations. They do what they call a job outlook every year. So they're asking employers for feedback. They're asking candidates for input. And the number one attribute that employers are looking for are problem solving skills, science related, ability to work in a team, and communication skills. And they actually list written communication skills as number 3. So written work is number 3. I think verbal is in there. I can't quite see it, but it's also in there. Interpersonal is in the top 10. But I just find that really interesting that as candidates launching into maybe their first career, that those are the things they're going to be asked about to demonstrate, which isn't any different than what you all are probably asking them to demonstrate as well.
Sure.
So
You mentioned you may have something you wanted to share. Was there
oh
something?
yeah, I was going to share. Let me see if I have the ability to share. Hold on.
You
Now I'm going to
should.
have to figure out which screen it is, right? So I was going to show you that. Hang on one second. Let me put it in presentation mode before I share, so then it's easier to maybe share it. But I think one of the other things while I'm pulling that up, that is an activity that I do that might help with, let's see if it works. Oh boy, which tab am I picking, Carolyn? Pick tab to share. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Still, all these platforms are different. Okay, let's see if it works.
Yep.
Are you seeing it? Okay.
Yes.
So those are those competencies I was talking about. Well, one of the activities that I've done actually, even with families, and you could absolutely do this with students, is when they're in our space, I say, well, what did you want to be when you grow up? Like first recollections, right? And instantly people will smile or they'll chuckle or they'll make a face, right? And it's interesting to have them talk to you, even as middle schoolers, having them respond to that question of what did they want to be when they were little? First of all, it's kind of defining what little is, but then also is that still the same as a middle school student for you all as adults, right? Is your idea about what you were maybe going to be when you were 5, 6, 7, how has that changed over time and what has influenced that, right? And sometimes it's their families, their communities, the people that are important to them are influencing that. But then the other pieces are sometimes it's access to information, sometimes it's social, there are lots of things that can influence our career ideas. And so just with sharing this, I just wanted to show it to you just because I think, it gives you a little bit of that context of what those are. And then this is that chart. And I'm going to send these all to Bill, so you'll have access to them. I know he has a way to post things afterwards. But I just thought it was super interesting to look at, employers, and this is across all industries. So this is across all industries, and when they're asking for input, I think it's interesting to think about how we influence those. And how much influence you all have in the lives of these students, and how you can help them explore through whatever subject it is or whatever activity it is, that any of those things could potentially be career paths for them. Whether you're building a community garden or building a rocket or whatever it is, exploring the human body, like whatever those cases may be, you can really find career paths that link with those things. So, questions?
I got to ask Steve, what was the first thing you wanted to be?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't know what I want to do when I grow up yet. I would have to think about I have to grow up someday, and I don't want to think about that.
Well, and I
There we
always
go.
laugh. I say, do as I say, not as I do, or as I did. It's like, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a piano player. I wanted to do, at one point I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I ventured into the land of being a biology major at the University of Iowa, which is a really bad idea for me. Physics was also not my friend. But anyway, so I think there's ways that we all have exposure, and I was a farm girl from Iowa. I had farmers in my family lineage, and I had a whole bunch of nurses, and I didn't want to be either one of those things. Or I didn't think I wanted to be either one of those things. And so then it was, what do I have exposure to or access to explore those things? And I think that's probably my message today, is just encouraging the exploration and encouraging the curiosity. Because you all know at some point they start to think, well, but that's not the thing I should be. But what could I be if I had all of the abilities, or, and we're going to figure that out too. What are your strengths? What are the things you don't do as well? And how can you leverage those things as you grow and change and, experience life? So other questions?
I just have a comment. This figure 1 is amazing. I've been looking at this again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Just some of the things but the one that got me was the fluency in a foreign language is only 5.2%.
I was glad tactfulness was only 21.1%. That tells me 78.9% of people that would still hire me. This is nice.
But friendly and outgoing is 25%. Yeah, there's some homeless thing that you're kind of like, interesting. I don't, and I would argue, I think it depends on the fluency with a foreign language is a great one to pick on. Like, it probably really depends on the industry, depends on the
Sure.
location. There's always those, it depends, right? And I
right.
knowing that the majority, I think the majority of this, I'd have to check this. I think this is all US based companies and organizations. I don't believe, clearly they would have global, many of them would have global presences, but yeah. But, and we have lots of resources. I'll share some of those with Bill, because we definitely have, even through the College of Science, Danielle with her, area of career development there in the College of Science, she has some great tools and resources. Lots of links that we have are free and open to the public. So all of the things that I'll share with Bill, and I'll share the slides with you all as well, I think all of the things that I've shared are accessible just with web internet access. I don't think there's anything in there that I shared that's password protected or anything like that. So I think that's just important too, is that many of these materials are available. It's just like you said, Bill, earlier, it's time. And even some of our school counselors and some of those folks that have, maybe have more of an interest in this, may not even have the time that they would like to spend with students to really do some deep dives. So
awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time and
Sure.
your expertise. We greatly appreciate it.
Sure. And I'll have my contact information too, Bill, on this slide. So if anyone would like to reach out to me personally or just needs a connection or a resource, I'd be happy to connect. And if I don't know, I always say I'm happy to connect you or try to connect you with someone who does.
That is awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, enjoy the rest of your talks today, and I'll be sending that email to you, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. That goes and that goes. Okay. I got to John, I'm going to make you a panelist so that you can, we can see you.
We want to see you, John. More than just driving by yelling at people.
John, are you with us?
I am with you. I'm trying to figure out how to get my camera to turn on. So hold on 1 second here, guys.
No problem.
And lady, sorry. Hello, here I am.
There he is.
That's so funny. I got a chance to kind of sneak in and listen to the last presentation. And so, Steve, you may not have known what you wanted to do when you were younger, but I'm finally 62 and I've got it all figured out what I want to do. I want to retire.
I definitely don't want to do that.
Okay.
So, but yes, thank you for having me today. I'm delighted to be here.
So John, would you, for everybody else, will you introduce yourself and tell them what you do?
Certainly. My name is John Fisher. I'm one of the directors of undergraduate recruiting for the College of Science at Purdue University. That's a lot of words I talk to high school students about potentially coming to study sciences at Purdue, but we talk in general, as I think probably everyone realizes, we're talking to 16 and 17-year-olds. And again, I never say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I say, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? Let's start with there. And then I always remind them that, we're not choosing the rest of your life. We're choosing a starting place for you at a university, and then you can change that. So, but yeah.
Awesome. So in your all you're talking with people from all over, from all kinds of walks of life, are there some, I'm going to ask you kind of the same question I asked Carolyn. Are there some common things that come up again and again that maybe middle school science teachers could, I'll say, help or could address with their kids that might benefit kids as they get older and start having conversations with you?
Sure. So again, just the self-awareness that this is something that's really great for you. So if you have a student that really loves the chemistry class, if you have a student that wants to ask questions about eclipses and things like that, and this goes without saying, but you want to foster that, but you never want it to seem like an impossibility, and you probably don't want to say, oh, what in the world will you do with that? You'll never get a job. That will discourage students. So you want to do what you can. Now, one of the things I will tell you, if you have a student and you need to help identify them, a lot of times the very analytical students will be very one of the, if I say this, and this is a huge group, I want you to know that this is not official. This is just the John Fisher rule. But many times we notice these very analytical students, their food couldn't touch when they were little. It had to be separated on the plate, and they may color code their Skittles. So I'm always looking for Skittle sorters. If they do least favorite to favorite, that's always that they'll almost always do better on the ACT. But just, I think, make sure that you remind students that all things are possible, not to be siloed. The two biggest requests we've had this past year, I want to be a marine biologist on an exoplanet. And we also have students who want to do, no longer are they just the simple, like the wet lab stuff that we used to do. Now people who talk about neural networks will talk about quantum computing. They'll talk about hardware. They'll talk about, there's a big blend of everything.
Wow.
Neurobiologist or a marine biologist on an exoplanet.
Yeah.
That's,
I need that t-shirt.
I'll work on that.
That's specific.
So when, all right, that kind of sent me down a rabbit hole in my head. Sorry.
I've thrown Bill for a loop. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
It's not that hard.
No. So when you're talking with, when you're out and you're talking with these, usually what, high school sophomores, juniors, somewhere around there.
Yes.
And they start going, well, I think I kind of want to do this. What kind of questions are you asking them back about? I know you said like what your interests are, but then are there some, I want to say some like rubber hits the road type of questions that you ask them back? Absolutely.
So one of the things that's kind of a sorting tool for us is going to be your math ability. So unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, realistically, in the College of Science, we have a pretty high calculus requirement. So at minimal, high school students have to come to me calculus ready, which historically has meant pre-calculus, but even that is sometimes not as well prepared. Now, I've had to make a broad sweeping generalization. The biology students that I recruit tend to be the least mathy, but they still, even now, are fairly math savvy. But, if you make sure that the students, when they have the opportunity to start taking those math classes, to make sure that they're, getting good grades and a firm understanding of all of that. And then I always try to start students out in the broadest and most difficult major to get in, because here's the deal. Doesn't matter what you're going to study in college. You're probably going to take a math class and a science class and an English class your first semester. So although some majors are more difficult to get into than others, let's say if you started in engineering or science at a university, the good news is, and especially at Purdue, all of those credits would then transfer. So if I have a kid that says, I want to study math, but I'm also interested in physics, guess what? All the physics kids are going to take the same math that all the math majors are going to take, but they also get to take physics classes. So I would say, let's look with an eye toward still being a math major, but go ahead and take the physics courses that you can get into and see what you think of those.
That way it kind of keeps the doors open, right?
I always want the broadest funnel possible for the students. And so that's one of the awkward things that we do have in the College of Science. There are some majors that when you, so for example, if I have a student that says I'm interested in physics and engineering, and I'm the science recruiter, the broadest funnel is going to be engineering. They're going to take all of the same classes that the physics students are taking, but then they're also going to take the required first year engineering courses to get into departmental engineering. Now they can cut and run at the end of the first semester and say, whoo, dodged a bullet. I don't want to be an engineer. And we'll welcome you right back. But that way you've got a lot, you've got more choices.
So, yeah, it does make sense. So I'm going to say this, and then hopefully we can massage this a little bit to make it sound better.
Am I gonna have to edit this?
Maybe. So, I mean, John, if you're talking to a kid who's a sophomore who doesn't do very well in math classes at all, and they're like, I want to be a chemistry major, or I want to be a physics major, or I really like this. I mean, how does that conversation go?
So, okay, so if I get someone who says, I can spin this a little bit. We frequently will get students that say, I want to do actuarial science, but I'm bad at standardized tests. That's a bad combo. That's not a win-win situation. If you're going to be an actuary, you're going to have to do a lot of standardized tests and you have to do well. If you're going to be a scientist and you can't do math, you have two choices. You can improve your math skills, or you can take your love of chemistry and modify it so that you're not doing all the high-level scientific things. So you can always be, you could be a journalist who wrote about scientific things. You could be someone adjacent to it. You know, so I'm going to confess, and this is always embarrassing to confess, I'm not a scientist. I couldn't do calculus, but I am working in science, and I can talk the talk to a fair amount, but I'm not doing the big science experiments and things like that.
But you have a lot of knowledge of science.
I do. I watch Jeopardy. Yeah, that's what the internet's for. You can Google that. You can use the internet browser of your choosing. Sorry.
Yeah. Huh.
But
So
career,
I do. Go ahead.
But career-wise, I really need the math. And so is it a matter of you don't enjoy math, or is it a matter I need to have different study habits, or I need to hire a tutor, or I need to look at it from a different viewpoint? But the math is really critical for us.
And I guess I kind of wanted to hear a little bit of that, because what I don't want, I don't think we should be telling middle school kids like, okay, so your math skills aren't very good, so quickly you should already not be looking into these fields.
I don't want to say, you're right. You're absolutely right. We don't want to say that ever.
Right. Because I mean, we all mature at different times and things happen and whatever. But I mean, but to be honest with them, that you're going to need to have, you know, some good math skills if this is what you want to go into. And then now, how do you get there?
Correct.
You know, use it as a motivation, not as a deterrent.
Now, do we have, so one of the things I would say, and I'm not entirely sure who my audience is today, but if the student has a chance to do AP calculus, there's some things that I would recommend. Is this an appropriate audience for this?
I mean, we're talking to middle school science teachers, but
okay, probably.
But I think that knowledge is okay to give.
Well, what I would always say is to my biology students who do pre-calc their junior year, when you cut and run and do AP Stat your senior year, we all know what you're doing. You're avoiding calculus. You might as well bite the bullet and take the calculus class your senior year, because we're going to need you to be able to do calc. And then the huge advantage in high school of doing BC calc is if you get a 4 or 5, you can leapfrog over Calc 2, the destroyer of GPAs, the bringer of tears, and go directly to Calc 3.
And so, John, I think that knowledge is good, because I don't know how the other middle school science teachers feel, but I always felt like it was my job to almost be like a cheerleader for the high school classes and get them to understand, like, hey, you should be doing this, and here's where you should be, and this is what you need to be doing, and letting them kind of understand the paths that they should probably be looking at.
Absolutely.
You know, and then realistically, if they're having troubles in certain things, all right, you might have to do this and this, but eventually you need to take this, try to work yourself to this point.
Okay.
So, other questions?
You did good.
Now, if you ever, I will say to the assembled group, if you ever have students who want to talk to me, we still do one-on-one visits with people. So anytime that so if you're ever just Googling, it's the recruiting office at Purdue for the College of Science. My email address is super easy to remember. It's kind of embarrassing. It's JR, like Junior, Fisher, Fisher. So it's Junior Fisher at purdue.edu. Send me an email. We'll hook you up. We'll set it up. If you want me to talk to classes, if you get a group of students and you want me to just kind of go through and skittle sort with them and do those things, let me know and we'll get you all hooked up. But we always are excited to talk to your students.
So I added that to the chat so that people that are on there have it, but we'll also put something on the website when we're done.
Okay, that sounds great.
Anything left from you, John, any last little words you want to give them?
This is probably my last broadcast from this office. As you can see, we're all packed up and we're ready to move. So
I was going to ask where the boxes were.
you
guys are moving, aren't you?
Yeah, I got an unfortunate email. They've asked me to leave.
Hey, guess who's moving those on Monday?
I think you're helping.
Yeah, I'm helping.
Oh, you guys are right next to each other. That's too funny.
Isn't that funny?
That is. I see that. All right. All right. Well, thanks for having me. It was great to see everyone.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Now, do you kick me out?
No, you can leave yourself.
The red X?
Yep.
What's this button do?
Okay. Christine, I'm going to make you a panelist so that you show up.
Good luck, Christine.
Can you hear me? Let me get my video started.
We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Let me, I am having here we go. I was having car issues, so I'm at home today. So I wanted to make sure that I have my virtual background applied. Because I'm in my home office and it's a disaster area. Okay, there we go. Start video. Hey, there we are.
There you are. Well, Christine, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the participants that we have.
Sure. My name is Christine Schertz. I'm the next step that students see after they talk with John and they are interested in chemistry, because I work for the chemistry department. I'm an academic advisor at Purdue, and it's a little bit different than a guidance counselor in high school in that we as advisors basically help guide the students and teach them how to be students. We primarily work with getting them into coursework, but we're there to help them with finding resources and partnering with them to make sure they get the most out of their experience at college, because they come in and they don't know how to be fully functional humans yet, because they are so used to having their parents do things and their teachers do things for them. So when they're thrown into college, having a cold and needing a Tylenol does not mean asking mom for one. It means walking to the CVS across campus and then coming back and finding dinner. And so a lot of what we do is sort of to help them, work with them to make sure that they get through their plan of study. And, and again, a part of our job is to help them work on what they're interested in and what they might not want to do. Because I do have a lot of students who come into chemistry and go, oh, I took classes in chemistry now, I don't like it, what should I do? So that is part of our job, is to also help them find where they're going to have a happy home in a different major in college.
The first question I have for you is, in your position, do you talk to the students about career readiness?
We do. I work primarily with juniors and seniors, and so I do talk with them a lot about career readiness, because a lot of them, depending on their career, need different things to be career ready. For instance, in medical school, a lot of what students do to be career ready, and again, med school is it's more schooling, but it is going to be their career. So a lot of what med schools are looking for are experience in medical situations, shadowing doctors and hospitals, but also leadership experience. So they want to find students who are going to be leaders and have that experience of doing that and, excellence in their studies. But then they have to interview. So we help them say, I always tell them, you need to brush up on your interview skills. You need to brush up on, if somebody asks you a question, you can't look at notes. You have to be able to speak on the fly. So a lot of, I do talk to students about, with your experiences, you need to work on how you're going to communicate those with people to make sure that you can show how your experiences have grown you to say, hey, this is the job that I want, or this is the type of school I want to go to.
Interesting. And I'm thinking back to middle school science. I mean, so what a great opportunity for them to interview each other about what they did in their lesson and them having to articulate their thoughts.
Which goes back to communication.
Yeah.
And part of the communication is, and again, one thing that we found, and we kind of have learned this too, and that we have a certificate at Purdue that does this, is that a big thing is reflection, where you write about your experience, because you find out that if you write about it, it sticks in your head, so that later on, if you want to bring it up, you already wrote about it. So you don't have to on the fly come up with, oh, I spent last summer being a astrobiologist on an exoplanet, and let me tell you about what I did, and you kind of fumble through the facts. But if you write down and summarize what you did beforehand, that helps a lot. And that is part of that communication thing, Bill. You're right. It's very much that communication thing. And I'll tell you, scientists are sometimes very bad at communication because they're scientists, right? Sometimes it's very bad for them. So, and again, when you're looking middle school, I think a lot of getting them to respond and tell them what they see and what they think about what they're doing is really good, because then at least they are learning a context, right? Because if you just kind of just say, hey, this is what's going on and this is how it works, sometimes they'll want to, if you ask for their feedback, or even, get them to solve the problem themselves, that usually helps for communication. By the time they're in college, though, and by the time I see them junior, senior year, I mean, I used to work with freshmen, so I am familiar with them, but by the time they're juniors and seniors, most of them have hit that maturity level where they're pretty good at communicating. They just need a bit or a lot of fine tuning to be able to get that job, or to find a career. I think I will reiterate what Carolyn and John said, is that make sure you one thing, and this carries to middle school. They can have a great idea of what they want to do. Don't dissuade them, because I guarantee you that they're going to change your mind about 8 bazillion times before they graduate college. And you might as well just say, great, you want to be an astrobiologist, do it. Here's some great stuff to read. But the experience they get is what is going to decide for them if they put that in the yes or the no column.
Interesting.
And it doesn't stop. And it doesn't stop when you leave middle school, when you leave high school, when you leave college. I mean, you go to your favorite restaurant and you don't like the ribs, you're not going to order the ribs again, right? You're going to order the chicken. So, especially with students, I have students who literally, and this is another topic we can bring up, but I have students who literally dislike science with a passion, but are told that science is what will get them the good job with the good money. And that is the career they want. And they have pressure from outside. They come from backgrounds where, because we work a lot with students and we learn about their backgrounds and their upbringing. So we have students who say, I am going to have to give money back to my family once I get a job. And I know science is the way to do it. They know science is the way to do it, but they hate it. And so there's very much we have to teach them to separate the family wants from their wants, so that they understand that, you're going to keep getting C's and D's in science, but look, all of your English classes are A's and B's. So let's figure out how to get you to do something you really actually want to do versus what you think you have to do.
You mentioned something earlier that sparked my mind again, the whole job shadowing or going and being, I'm going pie in the sky. I mean, I think it would be awesome if middle school and even, lower level high school kids had more opportunities to job shadow, because until you get in there and then you find out like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to do this. you think it sounds good, but then later you're like, yeah, I don't think that's what I want to do. And so that whole idea of job shadowing, I think, is huge.
I think for middle schoolers, one option, and you have to talk to places though. One option is touring. Like for instance, if you know if you can work on it, I've heard of middle schoolers touring like the Subaru Isuzu plant in town. Like, hey, look, you see this big building, look what's inside. I recently went on a tour last spring at Evonik, which is the chemical company in town, and I am with some seniors, and we wandered around and they looked at the labs and they looked at things. And so because certain sciences have more hazards than others, sometimes just wandering through and seeing all the stuff, especially when you're middle school or even high school, really gets you excited about, can really get students excited about what you could do there. And so sometimes it's not even at the middle school and the high school level, sometimes it's not even shadowing. It's more just seeing what's in those big buildings.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, there are companies all around cities and towns and even rural areas that people have no idea what goes on inside of them. So for kids to see that, that'd be huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any other, when you have these kids who are getting close to finishing up their chemistry degree and they're about ready to move on to, job searching and this and that, are there some, I want to say some hard skills that they are lacking that you then maybe have to help them or push them into some areas to get help?
And this is a very special issue because of the times that we're in. I have found that a lot of my students don't like talking to strangers. It's very much and again, this group that's in middle school right now will have a different experience, but right now a lot of the kids in college lived a key time through the pandemic. And so there's times when in high school they should have been out working fast food or going to fast food or hanging out with their friends or with other people they don't know. And again, my kids are both, I have one kid almost in college and one kid in college. So they were these key numbers. And so a lot of the time it's just teaching them how to interact with people they don't know. And it sounds like a weird thing, but that's something that we've
telling
had to,
kids to go talk to strangers. That's not weird.
no, it's not weird. No, my son can talk. My son basically told me, I don't know if anybody on the talk is from in town, but we have an ice cream shop in town called Silver Dipper. And he told me last year, he said, I want to get a job at Silver Dipper because I spent the pandemic inside on my computer. I need to learn how to talk to people. So he actually went and got a job scooping ice cream so he could talk to strangers, and he's learned tons about working fast food. But that's a big thing. The other thing too with if you're looking at career readiness for students is a lot of it is, I'll bring this up because it happens, is time management. When you're in middle school, it's not a big thing. When you're in college, it's not so, it's a little bit worse because there's a lot of activities. But in college, one of the things I see when they're not college ready is that they've never had a control of their schedule before. They've never had to control when they have to do things. So they come to college and they think, oh, I only am in class 15 hours a week. I can do what I want in those other times, and I can work, and maybe I'll fit homework in here and there. And a lot of the students don't know how to do homework. We have excellent students who ace everything in high school who don't know how to study. And so having a little bit of, I know middle school, it's hard, some of it there is homework, but sometimes having a little bit of homework where it's not like just study, having a little bit of things where they think about things might help, where they're responsible for it the next day. That's not just the rote homework, that maybe you ask them a question and say, hey, write me a paragraph about what you want to do. Kind of incorporate that so they're used to having something they have to maybe think about that's not, let me just do the homework. That their parents can't help them with, because if they write a paragraph that says, what do I want to be when I grow up, like we talked about, that's the hard part. And again, in middle school, it's not as much of an issue. It's their next step in high school, where the high school is where they have to really learn. And by the way, I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was growing up. Because I read all creatures great and small novels, and then I took biology in high school, and I'm like, nope, not doing that. That's why I became a chemist. The other thing I do want to mention about being job ready and being career ready. I am a chemistry advisor. I'm also a chemist. One thing that I noticed, and maybe it's just chemistry, but those students who have a love for chemistry and who said, I really like chemistry and I want to go into it, 80% of the time it was because they had a wonderful teacher. They had a teacher who said, and I did too in high school. Mr. Dolder was the amazing AP chemistry teacher I had. And so you all do a great job of influencing these kids. And saying, if you nurture them, they might guide themselves into the STEM. And if those high school teachers, really put their heart and soul into it, I have students who literally say, I'm in chemistry because I love my teacher.
Yeah.
It's a big influence.
We received a large grant a while back, and in the final thing, we were talking to the 3 board members, and I said, you guys are probably in your position right now because you had a really good high school chemistry teacher, and they all went, they're like jaws dropped, and they were like, how did you know? And I'm like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then and right when I said that, and I said, and that's all we want to do is help more science teachers be good science teachers, and they were like, done, we're giving you the guys the money. And
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's so true.
And again,
Yeah.
middle school, I went to a very small middle school, so I didn't have a lot of science opportunities. And so I made sure I got them in high school. But I think that's the big thing in middle school is to make sure you instill that interest. I mean, that's a big thing right now. I mean, you're going to teach them the basics, but at this age, it's really instilling them the interest and giving them the resources and, showing them what is out there, right? Because a lot of students don't realize that you don't need to do chemistry. You don't need to have a chemistry degree to do chemistry. Right? You could be a food scientist without a chemistry degree. You could work in the environment without having a chemistry degree, especially like John had mentioned, if your math isn't great, because there's other aspects of science. And again, a lot of people see science and they're like, okay, I want to do anything related to science. I have to be in science. And a lot of students don't realize that health and human sciences at Purdue and the agricultural department at Purdue do so much science, but it's focused. And so a lot of people don't realize that sometimes the math and the upper level science requirements are a little bit lower for that because you're doing more people stuff and there's different types of classes you could take. So, my advice is to basically just inspire them, get them excited in what they want to do. And, if they move on, they move on because, like cookies, one day they'll like the chocolate chip, one they'll like the snickerdoodle. You just kind of have to, give them the opportunity to try everything and see what they like.
One other thing you said, and I wanted with the science teachers, I was thinking about, you were talking about being able to manage. And I think when we do some of these group work, if we have the kids set up their timetable as to when things are due and how they're due and all that, what a great way for you to model for them to be in charge of the time that it takes to get something done. You can give them some feedback on it, but at least then they are in control of that to be able to work on those skills to do that.
Yep.
So
I want to put you on the spot for a second. You're a college, you're advisor for the kids to go to college. And so how do I want to say this that I could say and still be videoed? What are your complaints? What are some things that you want to gripe at us teachers about? What are some things you wish we would do or wouldn't do that when we're pushing kids before we push them your way? Now she has to think about it. What can I actually say and not get hung?
Well, because part of it John already covered, which is the math. That's a big part of it, is because we have to, especially with science, with everything science, you have to be math ready. And so a lot of things are that students get pushed into science when really they shouldn't be. And it's not the student's fault. I think there's a way to kind of, we deal with this with freshmen too. I had a student who started college early and wanted to do science, and turned out he could do science in a high school setting in his high school that he was in, but when he got to a college setting, he just couldn't do it. And it was because of the level of knowledge. I think I think one thing I don't like is when the curriculum is, I'm going to be real blunt here. you just kind of walk the walk and you say, okay, I'm going to give you your homework and we're just going to do your homework, and you don't challenge them. They do their homework in class. So by the time they graduate, there's minimal homework done out of class, or it's easy enough that they don't have to think. And then by the time they get to college, they're given the same information to be taught on at a faster pace, and they freak out because they don't know how to read a book and take that knowledge and apply it to actually answering the question. That's one of my big things is, especially for some, and again, this is smaller schools primarily, especially in Indiana, where they don't have the resources, and so it's not their fault. But that's one of the big issues it's not really a gripe, it's more of a, I feel bad because the students just don't do well. I mean, they come in, they expect they are only going to spend 8 hours a week doing homework, and then they do their first test and they fail, and they're like, what did I do? I was straight A's in high school and now my identity is gone. You know, that's another thing, is that in school, we kind of highlight those smart kids and we make it their own identity. Like, that's how they identify. I just had a conversation with a student who was straight A's, high school valedictorian, everything, good school. And she came here and she's doing a 3.3 GPA, and she feels like she's failing. And she isn't identifying being a smart person anymore. And I said, everybody's different degrees of smart. The person who works at the grocery store has different smarts than you. You just have, and there are people in your class who are smarter than you now. So you're going to have to acknowledge that fact. And I think in a high school, sometimes we build that up with some of the smartness. Hey, this is a good thing for the head kids to be smart. But they're not doing what they need to do to function in college. That's a kind of a tough question, but you know, that's kind of what I see. I do know that having a high school chemistry teacher or a high school biology teacher that is good really does focus you into going there. And I have proof of that because I do know of a school that does not have a great chemistry program. And we barely ever get high school students coming into chemistry from that school. I won't name names, but you know, I do know that there's times when that happens. And so, but yeah, I think that's the biggest problem I see with in high school is, and again, it's not challenging them. It's basically teaching them life skills. By the time they're a senior, they should know by the time they're a senior, their parents should not control their schedule, is a big thing. You know, and again, in middle school, you can't do that. In high school, the parents have to let go.
I know a lot of middle school teachers though that are trying harder and harder to give it more control to the kids and less to the parents.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It almost gives with a little bit of understanding that they might have to have some, you know, safety nets for the kids, but yet trying to get them to do that more.
Low stakes responsibility is good because by the time they're in high school, if they don't have that, I've seen too many, I don't know, I'll tell the middle schoolers this, I've seen too many bulldozer parents there's helicopter parents who hover over their kids. Bulldozer parents are those parents who will bulldoze any obstacle out of the way of their child succeeding. And that's a new one that we've been using like the past year or so. And those are the parents I am afraid for. Those are the kids I'm afraid for because their parents have been controlling what they want them to do in their schedules and didn't give them the, you know, now the student comes to college and they don't have that, you know, support system there. So they don't do well.
They don't do well.
They don't do well.
Okay.
Does anybody I mean, I didn't know if anybody had any questions in the chat or not, but
Okay. Any questions from people? Put them in the chat, please.
if not, it's okay.
None swapped up yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen any pop up, but.
Okay.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for joining us and your knowledge. We greatly appreciate your time.
Sure. No
And
problem.
we will,
And if you
this whole video will be posted on our website. So for people to watch later again and again. So we thank you for that.
okay. Thank you so much.
Take
Anything
care.
else you need from me? We all set.
I think we're all set.
Okay. Thank you much.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's give him something good. Huh?
You want to share a link?
Got a link?
Yep.
You want to do this link?
Want to?
Do you want me to bring it up?
I'm ready to go. If you
You-
guys just tell me how you want to.
I'll tell you what, are you going to You go to the repository?
Go there, you wanna go to the main page? And show them how to get there?
Take over, start sharing.
Okay.
You're not sharing yet.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Patience here.
Oh yeah, that's not my middle name. Why does that look all narrow?
I need to.
Uh,
Oh, there it
There
is.
it is.
There it is. There it is.
I can go back to the.
go to the main
original.
page, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So this is our main website, and we're going to show you how to get to the STEM career repository. So if you go to outreach and then go down to teachers, and then you're going to scroll down. That you guys should have seen this because you were here to begin with the professional development. But if you scroll down a little bit,
On campus, it is a resource.
so right under the lesson plans and resources, the STEM career repository. So the STEM career repository was an idea that came about what, 2 years ago, year and a half ago? Maybe not even that long.
Year and a half,
Year and a half, let's say.
a little over a year.
And I will be real honest, we thought this thing was going to take off like crazy. It hasn't taken off as fast as we hoped because of getting videos made, but we are starting to get some legs growing
When
underneath
it says
us.
take off, it means us having meeting the 500 videos that I said we'd have in the first month. Well, I said 100 in first month.
You said
500 by Christmas.
by Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, and we're at 112 videos today, and it's been a full year.
And yeah, it's not Christmas.
Takeoff is getting professionals to do it. But explain what it is first, y'all.
Yes.
Sarah, go. Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah. What is this?
All right, the STEM Career Repository is a place for students to kind of create awareness for the vast number of STEM career opportunities that are out there. As teachers, we're asked to help students uncover some of these possibilities. So, you know, we know the typical, you can be a teacher, you can be a scientist, you can be a doctor, but there are so many STEM careers that we don't even know all of them. And there are new ones being created even, you know, by the day. And so what our goal was to create this searchable repository and kind of that quest that we put on there is to inspire all students, to let them see someone that they can identify with being successful in a STEM field. So they could see someone, hey, you know, they're like me in this way, and maybe I could do STEM too. And as we scroll down, what one of the very first links you're going to see is this keyword searchable repository. When you click on that, it brings up our complete list of all of the videos that we currently have, but searchable by keyword. So if you are you know, the last couple of guests have mentioned chemistry. If we pull up chemistry, we're going to see all kinds of STEM professionals with a career related to chemistry in some way. But it doesn't just have to be a certain content area. It could be just a topic. If it has to do with light, if it has to do with waves, if it has to do with rocks, and we're adding new ones as we go. We have a couple of in the queue that we're still working on. We will be recording some new ones soon. The point is we're continuously adding to this to build this resource of potential STEM careers.
And the great thing about these is they are anywhere from a couple minutes to what's the longest one? Probably like
Way too long.
way too long.
Like, there's one or two that I think are almost 10 minutes.
Yeah. But the majority of them are
Most of them 2 to 3 minutes.
really short for
There's some that's 45 seconds.
yeah. And the whole idea is just, you know, a kid is interested, they can search in there. a teacher's interested, they can search in there. You could share these with the classroom. You could share this with individual kids. You could put them into your lesson plans, all different ways that you can use these so that kids can find out a little more information about a specific career that's around a topic.
Yeah, the idea behind the keyword that Sarah was showing there is whatever you're teaching, our hope is that we have multiple videos that have that. And so it might be, I mean, if you're doing plate tectonics, hopefully there's some on plate tectonics. If I spelled tectonics right when I put it in the keyword. Sarah doesn't always proofread everything I type in. So, but so it type in some different words there, you know, earth, just make it, it's to plate tectonics. Oh, probably earthquakes. Yeah, I have several I've labeled earthquakes, stuff like that. And so as we've done these, the idea is anything you teach, there is a career related to that. And we're doing our best to add as many. We have, I think it's 112 videos right now in the repository. And so, and that counts the ones that aren't English too, because it's like, I know that one that we were talking about earlier is in both Japanese and English. We do ask people if they're fluent in another language to do it in English and in a language they're fluent in. And so you could type in the word Bengali, and you're going to see like 2 or 3 different videos in Bengali. And so if you do get students who are fluent in other languages, that might make them feel a little more comfortable to be able to see someone talking about a career in their language. And we're going to keep expanding this, obviously not at the rate that I thought we would. But we will, we add to this just about every week something. And so hopefully, I know, as Sarah mentioned, we have some in the queue that waiting on approvals for. And then we have, I know in 2 weeks, we have a handful that we're recording.
Yes.
There's probably a half dozen, a dozen we'll be recording here in a couple of weeks more that we have scheduled. So we'll be adding more and more. But tell us about the highlights, Sarah.
All right, so to support these this repository that we have, we are creating these little one-page STEM career highlights. And the whole idea is that this is kind of a listening guide that goes with the video. It has a little more detail about the particular STEM career that's mentioned in the video, and then kind of a fun puzzle to go along with it. The whole point is that it's just a guide. It's just a supporting document to help with that video. It's something that that could be assigned. It's something that could be done together, but it's just to kind of create that extra information there for students that are interested in that particular career, or to guide students in learning about different careers. We are going to kind of make that effort to highlight a different STEM career every week. We have a handful of these already made. This very first one's coming up. It's not coming up. Do I not see it?
The seismologist one isn't coming up. I see on your screen it's not quite there.
Yes.
I probably didn't deploy the actual page.
We'll have that one, but we'll go with this one. This is
go with the geochemist.
Geochemist career. And so we have Professor Marissa Tremblay, and she has a video there. We have the link to her video, but then also some information about what a geochemist does. And then, like we said, the kind of the fun puzzle that goes with that. So they're short. They're kind of just right, I would think, for that middle school level to learn a little bit more about the different careers. And as a teacher, for me to learn a little bit more about the different careers as well. I'm not always up on all of the, like we said, there's new careers that we learn about every day. So kind of learning some of that background information that we can then share.
So
go back a page and then Bill, or scroll down and Bill explain the request.
Yep. If
they know people.
So we're not afraid to beg is what we're going to say. If you look at the under there, we're trying to get as many professionals from different fields, different STEM fields to make these videos. So we're inviting people to contribute to this from anywhere by creating a short 2 to 3 minute video. and we tried to make this as easy as possible. So under the frequent asked questions, how do I record a video to be included? You can log in to the STEM career portal and record right from your computer. And we tried to really make this as easy as possible by them logging in to the portal. There's the portal. And so you follow this straight up. You select your webcam from down below. You start recording when and stop. We don't want you to try to make the perfect video. We have people that will edit the videos. And when you're done and you hit submit, you don't have to upload it, download it, email it. It automatically loads to us. And so then you don't have to do all that. The great thing about that is, it's done and out. You don't want to start and stop. You start it, you record it. If someone messes up, they just keep going. We'll edit it out later. But we do want you to be pretty concise and to the point. So we even have, like what it is you're doing, job description type things. So if you just follow and so really what we're asking, if you know of anybody, whether it's a spouse, whether it's an uncle, whether it's a cousin, kid, people in your community that you go, boy, they should have one of these.
Parent of a student.
Yeah.
We would love to have, we'd love to get flooded with these, and so that we can add as many as possible onto this, so it becomes a very vibrant resource. And so that's what we're asking. And if you have questions on that, once again, everyone on here, I looked at everyone for the most part has my email already, because I've been emailing me for their PGP points. So if you have questions about this, feel free to email me and I'll help you get to that point. So we really just want as many as possible. So I want to go ahead.
Ask them if it's a good resource.
Well, that's what I was going to say. After you just heard about this, comments, questions on this resource, even things that we might do to improve it, or just anything that you
Make it
have.
useful for you as possible.
Keep sharing or stop.
Leave it up.
Okay.
Leave it up. Like I said, the idea behind the highlights is it's on our Facebook, Superheroes of Science Facebook page. We'll release those every Monday, starting this coming Monday. And I mean, they're all going to be on the web page. You can find them all. But we're going to highlight a career, to highlight a STEM career each week. And we'll do that, like I said, weekly from here on out, starting Monday. And that's just with the little highlight pages. And we proceed, when we talk to teachers about this, when they asked for help, when we started developing and designing this, it was kind of one of those things that we're like, well, we have access to a bunch of people in STEM fields, both professors and alumni. And would that be helpful? And they're like, yeah, this would be helpful. We need this. We could use this. And so we created it for you. This and other programs, if there are other programs you're like, it'd be really helpful if, throw that at us, let us know, because you never know it. We might be sitting here showing people how to do something else that you asked for.